From the Skyterra Wellness Retreat, this is the Inspired Intentions Podcast, where we help people build the skills and mindset to live a healthy life. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been enjoying our podcast, take a moment to rate and review. It may seem like a small thing, but our ratings and reviews make a huge difference in the quality of our show. They help us reach more listeners like you so we can continue bringing you more amazing content. So, if you've found inspiration, learned something new, or just love tuning in every week, please rate the Inspired Intentions Podcast 5 stars and leave us a review and even share with a friend. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get into the show. Inspired Intentions listeners, welcome back again for our Monday episode. I am interested in this episode. It's something new. It's different. I am excited to hear the answers to these questions. I have none other than Teresa Osler here in the booth with me. Hey, Teresa.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm always excited to have you here, and I'm really curious to hear what you have to say today. Our topic today is all about best practices for somebody that's thinking about coming to Skyterra, mindset, what brings people success while they're here. And all of this actually derives from a question that we got from a listener.
Yes, a shout out to Lisa for asking this question because it really got us thinking about how we can communicate some of these things to our potential guests.
Yeah, anybody that's a potential guest, somebody that's thinking about it, somebody that has been here, we have a whole reservations team that works with every single person that comes through our door. Our reservations team is top notch. Mm-hmm. They answer the phones pretty much 24/7.
They're so good.
So good. But I think it's hard to portray everything that we are and everything that we do.
Yes.
And that's what this episode is about. We're here to talk about some questions that you think that people need the answers to, which is fun.
I love this.
For Lisa's question was essentially, in order to help me prepare, reframe this experience for myself, can you share with me the traits and choices among the people you've observed who have become most successful at overcoming great odds in their journeys to regain health? What do they have in common? What do they focus on? What do they tend to avoid? And I think that that's a really well thought out question, Lisa. I would maybe bet to say most people that are thinking about coming to Skyterra Wellness Retreat have the exact same question that you're thinking. There's probably some fear, intimidation, maybe around fitness, maybe around nutrition, health, wellness in general, before you come. And that's kind of what we're here to hopefully extinguish a little bit.
Well, I love that, Alan, because I think you're right. This is a significant investment in a person's life, their success as they're aging, as they're living. And not only is it a financial investment, it's a time investment.
Big time investment.
And for some people, it's kind of scary too. Mm-hmm. What if I can't do it? Am I supposed to be a very fit person coming in?
Right.
So I think it's a beautiful question. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, me too. And I have a curveball for you.
Okay.
So I was upstairs getting coffee and just organizing a couple of things this morning. And I had a guest that's been here for this past week come up to me and say, what are you doing today? You having a good day? I was like, I'm doing great. I'm just getting ready for a podcast. He's like, podcast? What are you guys podcasting on? And you were sitting over there. I don't know if you heard me, but I was like, I'm actually doing one with Teresa, and we're doing it on, like this idea of curiosities and questions that people have before they come. He goes, oh, I got one for you. He's like, you guys just need to start with like what you are, because people, they can look at the website, they can talk to reservations, but I've been here for a week and I feel like I'm just now getting the big picture on everything that you do, that it's so much more that you can understand until you're here and you've experienced. So I'd love for you to start off, Teresa, and there's nobody better to answer this, of who we are. What is Skyterra? What is it that we do?
Oh, I love this question, Alan, and I hope that I can get it all in a very concise answer.
Yeah.
So Skyterra Wellness is a retreat where people come from anywhere from a week to as long as they can stay, and they work just on themselves. And as you know, we opened about 8 years ago. Skyterra is the brainchild of Sue Crowell, our owner and founder, and my sister. Yes, shout out Sue. And one of the things we noticed very early on as we opened Skyterra is everyone has something they want to work on. Sometimes it's a fit vacation, but sometimes it's well, our mission really says it best, in that we want to make a difference in people's lives, because our vision is that everybody deserves the skills and mindset to live a healthy life. And our guests either want to improve their functioning, they want to age in a healthy way. Sometimes they've been given a very critical diagnosis, like type 2 diabetes or hypertension, or something is not working in their lives. And we live in a crazy, stressful world. Do I need to tell you that?
I think people are learning more and more every day.
Well, and it's shocking to me how much stress and a lack of sleep contribute to so much dis-ease and illness in our bodies. And so what Skyterra is taking all of the pillars that we believe help make this healthy life, putting them all together. We have education classes to teach about it, movement classes that help you move your body, and we try to put it all together and give every single guest the specific skills they need to go home and live their very best life. We start, I always like to start kind of with fitness, because sometimes we think fitness is about a boot camp, and it's actually not about a boot camp. If we over-exercise our bodies, we can actually injure ourselves. We start laying down more visceral fat because our bodies think that we are being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And fitness is not just about going to the gym in the morning. We call that active couch potato, and sitting the rest of the day. It's about finding ways to consistently move your body throughout the day in a way that brings you joy. And and then
that's pillar number one. You mentioned 5 pillars. We've got 5 of them. Fitness is number 1.
Number 2 is food. Sometimes we think of food as our enemy, and food doesn't have a personality. It's not good or bad. Food is our fuel. Food is meant to nourish our bodies. And I just love that word, nourish. I think it's such a feel-good word. And at Skyterra, you're not going to get diet food. You're going to get this beautiful, colorful food that our chefs have prepared. Some of it is often from our garden or our greenhouse. Shout out to Jess in the greenhouse and garden. And it's beautiful food that we get to eat and fuel our bodies so that we can move and so that we can feel good. And then our third pillar is stress. Finding ways to utilize stress to the benefit of our bodies is really something we try to do at Skyterra. And there's so much trauma and angst and anxiety in our world today. And we seek to give people tools to manage that. And then you know how much I love talking about sleep. Number 1, because it was my biggest obstacle to health. And I could probably say it still is. I work on it every single minute of every single day. And I feel like I'm a sleep expert at Skyterra, and yet it's something that I love this quote. It is the single most important way to reset your brain and body that you can possibly do. And yet we often give it the least amount of attention in our day. So to me, even though it's a sub-pillar, it's the most important pillar. It's the foundation of health and wellness, the foundation.
Superpower.
It is. It really is. And I remember the day I woke up and I had a really good night's sleep, 8 hours and 2 minutes. And I felt on fire.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that day because that's what I seek for every single day.
We can't, I just wanted to interject this because I've actually heard this from your son before, Greg. You can't work on something that you haven't been through yourself.
Oh, yes.
And that's one reason why you are such a sleep expert.
It's also because I suffer from FOMO,
Yeah.
a fear of missing out. If I go to bed, I will miss out on life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Number 4?
Fourth pillar is yoga and mindfulness, reconnecting to our bodies. We absolutely disconnect from our bodies to survive this world. And every morning we have a connect class where we reconnect with our breath, with our body, with the earth, and it helps us so much to get back into our worlds. And most importantly, to listen to our bodies and to be able to recognize what we need. And then your very favorite, our fifth pillar, is hiking and recreation. And sometimes we think that we have to do this drudgery every day, and it's really about finding joy in movement. And so many of our guests love hiking with you and really reconnecting to just the beauty of the world that we have.
Yeah.
So those are our 5 pillars. And I think that what we do every week is try to bring those pieces together for our guests, because health and wellness is not about one of those. It's about little bits of every single one of those pillars every day.
Yep. Finding a balance, whatever your balance is.
I love that word, balance. Yes.
Yep. So I think that lays out really well who we are and what we are, kind of leading towards Lisa's question. What do you see most frequently in first-time guests, people that have committed, they're here now? What do you see in those first-time guests?
Well, I can kind of divide it into 2 or 3 groups. So
Okay.
the first one is that person that is so excited and they are gung-ho. They're going to do every single class and they burn out rapidly and they're just in pain, maybe even sometimes injure themselves. The second person is the person who's afraid to try. And they come excited, but they're scared, and they start judging themselves against other people. And I can use a really great example just from yesterday. Ryan came out of a SkyFit class, and he said, "Do you know I had 20-year-old, an 80-year-old, and a bunch of people in between, and none of them compared themselves to each other. They just did their personal best." And that's really what I wanted to share with Lisa is, Lisa, come in. Yes, you may be afraid, but you do you. You don't, yes, it is scary to try new things, but don't be afraid of trying. Just jump in. Don't be afraid of failing. Just try you. And if that means you have to use a bench your first day or your first couple of days, that's okay. Just do you and try as hard as you can not to be afraid. And then the third person or type of person that comes to Skyterra is someone who really, they're experienced. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They feel really comfortable. And sometimes that comfortable person can be intimidating. And yet, I just will go back to you do you. At Skyterra, you don't have to compare yourself to the 20-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, the 80-year-olds. You compare yourself to you. You do your best and just try to kind of stay in your lane. And you, because all of us started somewhere.
Sure.
We all started at the beginning. And those people who come in and are really confident, they were first timers one time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just look at them and say, you know what? I want to be like that one day.
I'd say that also first-time guests come in and they see people that have been here before, because it's very rare now that we have a week where we don't have return guests.
I know, really.
And those are usually often the confident folks. They know the
Yes.
program, they know the deal.
Yes.
And you can't compare yourself to somebody that's had experience, just like you were saying.
Well
So
said.
yeah, I love that. Those are kind of the three types of groups of people that you see. What do you see in people that are coming to the end of their stay, whether that be a week or however long they were here, that were successful? What they would be leaving feeling successful? And I know that's a loaded question because there's so many different versions of success depending on what you came here to work on. But what traits do you see in guests that are successful in their own personal journey? I feel like that's something that is embedded in Lisa's question, that she wants to know, what does success look like?
Well, I was thinking about this question because just yesterday, one of our guests said this, and they said, "You show up. You just show up. You try, and you're open-minded. You." And I love those words. You just show up. You can't do anything if you don't come to class.
Yeah.
And then I love one of the things that I love that I've heard from several guests, especially one of our really frequent guests, Leah. She listened to every podcast, so she kind of prepared herself. And a lot of our guests have found that listening to our podcast, what's it called? Inspired Intentions. That helped prepare them so that they weren't quite as afraid. They try. They try. This is probably the most important thing that I try to drill it in, but it's speak up. Ask for what you need. Do not be afraid to ask. One of the things I like to tell people is I have hurt my knee from not listening to my body. And I did it when about 15, 20 years ago. So I have to be really cautious. And so what I do is if I'm doing a movement that the coaches have explained, I will ask them, look at how I'm doing this because it's hurting. How do I do it differently? Is my form right? Am I squatting low enough? Am I squatting too low? There's not such a thing probably, but how am I doing? And letting the coach know. The coach's job is to coach you. And so many times our guests will say, "Oh, well, I don't want to bother them. I'm too embarrassed." But you can say it quietly. Just have, once they've got the group going on a movement, then pull them aside or schedule a private session with them.
That's a great point.
To make sure that you are doing the movement the right way for your body. One of the things I love about our coaches is their ability to come up with a different movement that still helps a specific part of your body, and yet it's different and it doesn't hurt your body. So if you've got knee issues or back issues or hip issues or ankle issues, shoulder issues, you get to do you, and you just have to speak up and let us know. As you know, we have our mobility.
I was about to bring that up. Yep.
Mobility screening
Yeah.
On Monday mornings, and our coaches share that information. And yet you know you better than anyone. And so making sure that, gosh, I'm trying to lift that over my head and yet it hurts. What can I do differently? And just for me the other day in class, I said to Ryan, wow, this is hurting and I'm not used to that. And he showed me this really neat stretch that immediately loosened up my muscle. And
And that's, to make a point, that's for every facet of what we do.
Yes,
It's not just the strength room.
No.
It's not just the the yoga zone. It's not, you could apply this to culinary. You can apply this to the hiking. You can apply this
Yes.
to the pool. Speak up. Let us know what you're feeling. Listen to your body. And we are here to be a guide. And we can guide you towards successful movement, successful mindset, as long as you tell us where you're at.
Yes. No suffering silently.
Right.
Drives me
Right.
bonkers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are so many things we can do. And yet, unfortunately or fortunately, none of us have cartoon balloons above our heads that we can each read and understand what someone is feeling. And that's such a perfect example. I had a guest come yesterday, and he hadn't done a lot of yoga in his life, and his wrists were hurting. And so I lined him up with Claire, who is just an expert with the body, and she was able to give him some accommodations
Mm-hmm.
that really, I checked in with him in the afternoon, and he said, yeah, it really is helping. So
A funny, perfect example from yesterday too. We pivoted a hike. We changed it yesterday.
that is a perfect example.
We did something that we had one thing scheduled. We changed it. We did something that was more inclusive. And it wouldn't have happened if a guest wouldn't have spoken up.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, that was it.
You did that last week too.
I
and
did.
Our guests were so happy.
Yeah.
And again, would not have happened if people hadn't just asked for what they want. And this is what I like to say to our guests, Alan, how many times in your life do you get to go somewhere and ask for anything you need and have it happen?
Mm-hmm.
And does it happen 100% of the time? No, because we're all human beings.
Yeah.
And yet we really try to do the things that our guests need, or at least find ways to get as close as possible.
Can I quote a guest from like 2 weeks ago on the same topic? He said to me and a group, he was joking, but he was being serious at the same time. He said, I'm going to start asking for stuff that is absurd just to see if they'll say no to me, because they won't say no. They figure out a way to make stuff happen for me when I don't even think that it's possible.
I love getting to yes.
Yeah.
That's my type of person. And I love yes people. So I'm attracted to yes people. So when I hear that no word, even when I was younger, someone would say no, and it kind of raises the hair on the back of my neck. Makes me want to push harder.
Yeah, we try and figure it out, right?
We do.
What else do you see that you find makes guests successful here?
I think really seeking to not judge themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We seek to not judge others. I love the saying that we have at Skyterra, don't should on yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll say, I should do this. I should go to class.
I know I should do that class, but this one sounds really fun. Yeah. Guess which one you should actually do?
The class that is fun. Because if you're not having fun, if you're not finding joy in whatever you're doing, you're not going to go home and continue that. The job is to find joy. Mm-hmm. Find joy in moving your body. Feel those muscles again.
Right.
Feel your brain working again. Feel your brain solving problems again. Sometimes we just get ourselves into a corner and we're so burned out and so tired and so exhausted and so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it just takes some good food, some good sleep, some good movement, some time outdoors in nature, and you're starting to feel yourself again, and you're remembering who you are. I have those little angel intention cards.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite cards is the grace card. And when we first had it, I didn't think much of it. And then we had the most darling guest who picked that card up And she looked at it and she was silent. And then she said, "You know, I always extend grace to others, but I never extend grace to myself."
Hmm.
And I love that idea of not judging ourselves, not beating ourselves up. N- Very few of us have the bodies that are being advertised, and yet working on on what we have. You know, that body, this body that we have, this body I have, is strong, it's healthy, it's energetic.
Mm-hmm.
It has served me a lot of years. And how do I speak to it? How do I extend grace to it? How do I love it in the very best way I can, and make it possible to continue to live my very, very best life? And that's what our guests need to get to, is finding a way to get back to themselves, get back to loving themselves, give themselves grace for not being perfect, and discover who they really are.
Yeah. And from a technical side, we educate on this. This is
Yes,
not just something that you
absolutely.
have to come upon yourself. We educate on this, and sometimes my angle would be it boils down to what you've been telling yourself you are or you aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Having grace and understanding that you can be somebody new in the future. You're not fixed to an identity that you've given yourself or that somebody has given you, that
Mm-hmm.
if you can change this preconceived notion of who you are, you can change the trajectory of what your future holds.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Anything else, Teresa, that you see as a common thread of success from the guests that you've worked with?
Well, love that question. People, they don't give up. They keep trying. They find things they love.
Mm.
Some guests, we've got a couple right now, who set goals. Like, I'm going to finish the 5K, or I'm going to walk to the waterfall,
Oh, yeah.
or I'm going to do an easy hike all by myself with Alan.
Mm-hmm.
So they set small goals that are attainable. The other thing they do is they start imagining what life is going to be like at home. I remember the very first time I experienced a wellness retreat, and I gave myself 100 to-dos. And I went home, and Alan, I was immediately devastated because there was
Oh,
no way that I could live that life, that I had just spent a week just focusing on me,
mm-hmm.
and I was back in with all of my different hats, and I couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
There was no possibility. And so I like to our guests to go home and focus on one thing that I can do, like the Metabo walks after meals. I can do that. I can push away from the table and I can walk for a few minutes or 20 minutes, whatever I've got time for. And 1 or 2 minutes is better than zero.
Yeah.
And so that is imagine how you're going to fit this new lifestyle into the life you have. Sometimes it means giving some things up. But how are you going to take as many of these best practices that you've learned while you're at Skyterra and implement them when you go home? One of the things that I've started doing is 5 minutes is good enough. I am that person
Yeah.
that loves to spend an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours in the morning working out. And some days it's just not possible.
Yeah.
So what I decided is 2 minutes is better than zero. So I'll get on my rower, I'll get 500 meters in, 2-3 minutes, and then I get on my bike. And if I'm lucky, I can do 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes 5 or 10 minutes is all I can do. And I don't beat myself up. And that's really what I want our guests to do, is find ways to incorporate as much of your healthy living, the things that bring you joy into your life, and 1 minute is better than 0.
And I think that gives people like a newfound confidence.
100% agree. What is so much fun, Alan, is as people have been here, even I noticed it this morning in a guest, there's a light in their eyes. They can start feeling their bodies again. They're moving with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
They are excited. I hear them giggle at mealtime. It's just so much fun to see that confidence, to see them remembering who they really are and getting back into themselves.
Sometimes it's kind of like water boiling. You see it slowly over time. Sometimes it's a light switch.
Yes.
In my experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a right or wrong, but it's just beautiful to kind of see that either slow change or even sometimes within a week, that fast change.
Well, and the color to their skin is back. I mean, it's light in their eyes. Yes, it's just amazing.
And it's all through those kind of pieces and those steps that you've gone through about the common threads of the success stories that we've had. And honestly, I mean, it's kind of patting ourselves on the back, but we've had a lot of success stories.
The success stories are so amazing. It just they bring tears to my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
People do not realize how truly strong they are. And when they can start feeling how strong they are, that they're not weak, that just trying is good enough, it's amazing how that builds confidence. And the more confidence you have, it just builds on itself. And it's pretty incredible to see.
Yeah. Well, to kind of round this thing out, if you're a listener and you're thinking about coming, maybe you're a past guest, you're thinking about coming back, you're somebody that can't come right now. What, Teresa, do you want our listeners to do with this information? My hope is that, if you are one of those people that's coming, you can listen to this and feel even more comfortable about coming.
Yes.
You can be more prepared. You can have a better mindset, all the things that Teresa kind of just talked about. But, what else do you want people to do now, Teresa?
Well, I want people to feel confident that there are ways that they can heal their body and get back into themselves.
Yeah.
Come to Skyterra if you can. And if you cannot, go to skyterraathome.com.
Yeah.
There are so many free resources. There are recipes. There are yoga videos, fitness videos.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Inspired Intentions podcast. Just start. Do one thing that is going to help you. Don't give up. Keep trying. And remember that when you can come to Skyterra, you will be accepted just the way you are.
We meet you where you are.
We meet you where you are.
Yeah, if you look at our website, you're definitely going to see that. It's all over the place. We're serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Teresa, I think, anything else you want to add? Do you feel like we got a good information out there for guests and listeners?
Well, if there are questions that you have,
100%.
Please ask us. I just was so glad that Lisa reached out and asked this question.
Mm-hmm.
I wish more people would, because when we can help people feel prepared for coming to Skyterra so that they can jump in. And Lisa is an amazing guest. She came and she tried, she did her very best, and had just a sparkle in her eyes every single day. And she's coming back in a while.
That's awesome.
We're going to be excited to see all the progress she's made and meet her where she is now on her journey.
Absolutely. Listeners, if you have questions like Lisa, please send us an email at inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Just like this question, it may get answered on the podcast. We may just email you back personally, but we'll get back to you. inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Send us your questions. I might even bring Teresa back on here to answer whatever the next one is.
That would be fun.
There you go. Listeners, I hope that this has been helpful. And we look forward to bringing you another episode next week. Thanks again for coming on, Teresa.
Thanks, Ellen, and thanks everyone who's been listening.
Yeah. Well, next time. Bye.
Bye.
The Inspired Intentions podcast is a production of Skyterra Wellness Retreat. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alan Broyhill. Send us your questions and comments to inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Subscribe on iTunes and everywhere podcasts can be found. If someone you know might benefit from this podcast, share Inspired Intentions with them and give us a 5-star rating. Join us next week as we cut through the unrealistic noise on diets and fitness and show you how healthy living fits seamlessly into your already busy life. Thanks for listening.